any questions? I know we're just gonna try to keep this to the end, but we were getting close, so I'm gonna try to get to some of the writing sports. Yeah.
Question about pronunciation, because I've just noticed each time there's an issue of pronunciation.
Yep.
So especially because my interest is working with second language learners.
Sure.
Do the different voices, are there any voices in there that are more apt to correctly pronunciate things, and are they able to adjust between standard American English and, for instance, you had Reconquista, you had a Spanish word in there. Does it adjust to the language so that it's correct pronunciation?
Right, it's a great question. And the answer is yes. Is it perfect? No. But essentially, I will show you under speech options, speech options here, there's something called say like. And I'll give you an example. And frankly, it depends on the voice. Let's see how this works. Oh, I'm sorry.
Benit.
Benit. Benoit. Benit is pronounced Benoit, right? So I'm not using a French voice, but I can save this pronunciation to my list. And there is something called Teacher's Toolkit, which allows you to make these changes globally for the university. So if there are certain words that are not pronounced properly, I can make these changes as an individual to my particular settings, or they can be made, system-wide through the toolkit. Interestingly enough, before these new voices came out, I had a representative down, Jeff Levinson. He's out of North Carolina. He works for me down there. He loved Anna, which was the Microsoft voice. It always said Obama instead of Obama. And I'm like, Jeff, you can't use that voice. It's terrible. It doesn't even pronounce our president's name correctly. And then I would use one of our voices, and it said Obama fine. So sometimes it's built into the phonetic mapping of the voices themselves. So if one voice isn't working in a particular way, I would suggest trying another. But so there's a little give and take here, and there's the ability to make these changes individually. And this Benoit is a perfect example. There's no speech-to-text engine that's going to pronounce Benit Benoit. It just doesn't get it.
What did it do with Philip II? Because it said Philip I instead of Philip II.
Right.
So, if you're doing history, you're going to have a lot of...
There's one more wrinkle. The other is Philip. I guess in this case, if I did II, I can't. We'll see how it does here. It's probably, and the wrinkle is the environment sometimes changes how the voice engages the content too. So we'll try it here. It's probably going to say Philip I.
Philip I.
Yeah, it's going to say Philip I here too. The other thing, there's several different ways you can go down this road. One is you can actually alt the text in a PDF. So I'm often asked about accessible math and how do you deal with accessible math. And it's a very similar thing because math, there is actually a way of presenting math in a way that we can read it, and that's MathML. But if you put math in a PDF and it tries to read equations, it just can't do it. So there are certain limits that you're going to come across from a speech engine standpoint, but that's almost universal with, be it you're blind, visually impaired, or LD person, that technology is going to hit its limit. Just to wrap up the last point there, there are several voices in the program, including French or Spanish voices, so that the Spanish voice will give the proper what am I looking for, cadence or prosody, I guess is the word I was looking for the native language. But and that sometimes helps. But with an II, if it's typed in II, it's going to read II. So we're quickly moving on here because I do want to get to some of the reading and study skills tools. And in this is actually, this is a Word document. I'm going to use this for study skills purposes because I could go to the web, but just for simplicity's sake here, I'm going to go to my study skills toolbar, and I just want to show you guys a couple of things quickly on how students can use this tool to create audio files or to create study notes. There are some digital highlighters in the program. There's a vocabulary building tool, which frankly I don't know how much it would be used in a post-secondary setting, but in an elementary school setting it's brilliant because you can highlight specific words and it'll pull an image with that word and a definition of that word. But in this setting, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select some text here and put my main idea in yellow, maybe some supporting words in green. suppose I could click on the words. Species. And again, like any highlighting tool, you can use it, you can apply the strategy to the color. We don't necessarily do that for you. And if I select collect highlights here, I can do it in several different ways. What it's going to do is collect those highlights into a new document. And I might have hit my right key there. I'll just try that again. I don't know what I did. Please. I got several Word documents open here. Hold on one sec, please. So let's just try this one more time. There it is. So basically what it did is it collected my yellow highlights, my green highlights, and I had it collect in the order of collection time. But essentially what I can do at this point is I can select the text itself, and I think I have to go to select the text, and then hit our audio file creation tool. And this is called SpeechMaker, and basically it pulls all that text into a document. I can select my voice, reading speed, etc. And I'm going to put this on my desktop. I'm going to call it save as test. I'll put it on my desktop. I should be able to find it there easier than anywhere else. Click create. So audio files, this is a small amount of text, but it does go very, very quickly. I'm not going to save that. Reduce this. And I do not know why I opened so many Word documents, but it's not letting me close this. Okay. So here's the audio file. I'm just going to click on that and let you guys hear it for a second.
The commercial catches of many popular offshore food fish show a direct relationship to the ratio of marsh. Productive
The audio
fish
guys
species.
got that for us.
Marsh ensure the commercial fishing area.
So not only did it capture the study skills or the highlights, I put it into a form that, for me, if I'm an auditory learner or if I'm an athlete and I'm traveling, it allows me to take my study skills and my notes with me, which is very important. We didn't really touch base too much on learning styles, but Beth and I were actually having a conversation about it this morning, and I asked her, what's your learning style? And we actually challenged each other about it. I'm definitely kinesthetic. I use my hands a lot. I'm somewhat Italian, I guess. My wife says I'm not Italian enough. She's real Italian. But I use my hands a lot, and I talk, and I learn when I type things. And she was taking notes at breakfast. And, essentially, I said, well, that's the same strategy I use to learn things. I either have to type it out once, or when I was a kid, I wrote things out, and I have terrible handwriting, so that wasn't very encouraging. But these are ways that we learn. We all learn differently. If you're an auditory learner, this is a brilliant tool that it just allows you to, put things in a form that allows you to access it effectively. And that's really what the vision here at OSU was, to give students tools that really allowed them to engage content and curriculum in a way that fits their learning style. That gets back to the whole piece of universal access. So I did want to quickly point out the audio file capacity. We do limit the file size to, I think it's around 10 or 12 pages or 10 minutes of audio files. So if students are chunking things out, you should be aware that you can't just copy 400 pages of a PDF and create an audio file of it. One, it's probably not a great strategy for the student to just have one big run-on audio file and to chunk it out. So just pointing that out to y'all. As far as some of the ESL supports, if I can find that Salt Marsh document here again, one of the things I want to quickly point out to you is something called Picture Dictionary. And this is a relatively new feature in the program. It's a web-based image library that is a very powerful tool for students that are acquiring English or students that need visual supports for words. So if I click on a word like many, for instance, what you're going to see here is a symbol of many. This is the same communication library that's used in things that are, anyone know about AAC devices in the room? Have you heard of communication devices like Dynavox or Mayor Johnson? These types of devices help students that are nonverbal to communicate. And we license the widget library, which is the same license or library that's in many of those devices, into our program so that, and it works on the web, it works anywhere you can select accessible text. So if I select a word like food, you're going to get a picture of food or amount. If there is something, an image of the word, you're going to get a picture of it, or a communication symbol. So it really mixes all sorts of both clip art and the communication library into one tool. What I really like is to show how this tool works with our predictive writing tool. And I did, since we are getting close to the top of the hour, I am bouncing around a little bit, but I do want to show you all the predictive writing tool. We all have predictive text in our iPhones or iPads, and most of the time on the iPhone it's sort of frustrating because it's telling you to do something you don't want it to do. It's a little different in our program. We have about 1.3 million phrases, trigrams, that are embedded in this program. So as students start to type, it's not only predicting the word they're typing, be it phonetic or otherwise, it's predicting the next word and the following word. It's also predicting back. So I could show you how our grammar and our spell check works and all this sort of other stuff, but when you use a good predictive tool, if you have a hard time writing, it does a few things. One is it allows you to express what you know without really having to get in the weeds with trying to write. So for certain students, this is very helpful. So as I start to type a T, for instance, you get a bank of words. The cool thing with this, as I move over some of these words, if I leave the picture dictionary open, I'm getting image support for those words simultaneously. I also have a dictionary right off to the left-hand side of that word, and a little ear that says that word has multiple meanings, or it might sound, it's a homophone. Basically, it sounds like other words, but it might not be, you might be careful when you insert this word. So, of course, in Read and Write Gold, I say of course, but there is a homophone scan, so you can actually scan your writing, listen to your writing for homophones, so you can actually get contextual definitions of those words. So, you know, the obvious one is there, like a place or a possession. So, you know, for students that, you know, frankly, it took me a long time to figure that one out, I'm embarrassed to say, but there are many different tenses that you can work with this tool. So it's really just, again, these scaffolds of support for students. And I just love the way that these two tools, and it was never intended this way, work in sort of concert with each other. And I have my machine on mute, so I probably don't even have, let me shut the mute off. So I think I have VoiceOver turned on. I don't. So let me go to, if I go to my prediction options, I think I have speak, so I can actually even, I can triple down on this guy. So as I move over words,
There. Think.
I can actually get the auditory support too.
There.
So just wanted to point that out to you. And as, I mean, Oklahoma. So I can insert words. As I'm starting to type a word, I can insert the word. And you'll notice in this list, I typed the word Oklahoma, and I swear to you, I didn't do this last night. We have city and state. Now, if I hit F3, universities down at the bottom of the list, if I hit F12 and insert that, the next time I type Oklahoma and state, university will pop to the top of the list. So not only is there a ton of intelligence in this engine, but it also learns as you type too. So it learns your patterns, it learns your frequency, and that kind of thing. So it can be a very powerful tool, and I promise you it won't be nearly as frustrating as the Apple. I just got my first iPhone, and it is, I cannot write on the thing for the life of me. So any questions on this particular piece or this particular tool so far? No? Okay, great.
Describes.
So that is, in a nutshell, how I just want to recap where we've gone so far. And you can see we haven't covered a ton, but we've looked at predictive text. This little guy right here is the sounds like tool. So if I select that, it'll show you all the confusables in the document itself. And start going through like of and off. So I can go through that list. And we've also looked at the reading features and the varying reading environments. And I think that if there's anything you take away from today, think about accessibility. Think about how we engage and read really anything at any time for students, and that's real important. The other piece that we looked at was the ability to create audio files, so supporting varying learning styles in environments. So let me close this out really quick. I don't want to save that. I do want to show you really fast a tool called the Fact Mapper. Is anyone familiar with inspiration? No? Well, if you have children, they probably use Kidspiration or Inspiration in elementary school. It's basically a mind mapping tool. Fact Mapper is a type of mind mapping tool. So, you know, some of us can sit down and go, this is my main idea, this is my topic sentence, this is my first, second, you know, whatever the paragraph or theses I want to write out, and they just have, you know, they can create a structure for that. Others require the ability to sort of look at this visually, and that's sort of what this tool does. So it allows me to drop in elements and start creating sort of a framework of ideas. So if I'm writing a paper and I want to, you know, my main idea is the universe, that would be my primary element, and then maybe, hey, our universe is the Milky Way, and then our planet's structure, and I would create sort of a visual of this. So for visual learners, this is a very useful tool. And all of these things, and again, we don't really have the time to do it today, but all of these things can be exported to Word. So after you've visually created your map, you can export that to Word. And I will quickly universe. And then I'll say Milky Way. I'm a really bad typist, so I was trying to get away with not doing this. And then I can put our sun, which is our star. And if there's any science teachers in the room, I apologize. And I'll do, we'll say Mars. And I'm going to go back to the sun to sort of make this effective and go Earth. Earth. And we'll go, I'm just going to name a few, unless someone wants to help me out here. And we'll do one more. We'll do Jupiter. Now, for instance, if I click on Mars, and I search for Mars, I don't have to click on, I don't have to click on Mars, but I can find a little image that I can drop in here if I want, or if I do Earth. So we have similar images that I was showing you earlier are available to make this, you know, for your art students, to make this look cool. And I can just drop planet picture in here. But the important piece is if I click on File, I can export this outline to Word. I'll click Open so we can see it. And you'll see it'll structure this a little nicer than the way that I was doing it, but basically allowed me to take my main concept and sort of work my way down and create a scaffold or outline for that. So that's the Fact Finder in a really quick 60-second demonstration. Again, for visual learners, it's you know, and this inspiration I think is in 95% of schools. So kids are learning how to do this. This is how they're learning. You know, kids are learning totally different. My daughter learned something called the lattice method for arithmetic in elementary school, where she created like a tic-tac-toe board and could take 3, you know, digit numbers, you know, 9 of them, and add up something that was like 100,000, you know, whatever. So basically, she didn't learn math. I tried to show her how to. I learned arithmetic, and she almost killed me. But at the end of the day, they're learning things differently, and they're expressing what they know in more effective methods than when we probably went to school. So I did want to show you this. And that, I guess we're just about at the top of the hour. Are there any other questions that anyone might have?
This software also have where you can, if they want to dictate a paper or something like that, so they speak into it and it comes out.
Great question. It does. We use the Microsoft engine to do that. So you can launch speech input from the toolbar. It's this little headset here. So in previous versions of our program, we had a little text box that would pop up and you dictate into it and then drop it. Anything higher than XP, you actually can dictate right into the page to do it.
So as long as you have a microphone that plugs in, then you're good to go.
Exactly. Yep. There are other types of tools. There's also translation tools. So if students need paragraph translation, the program, as Beth mentioned, I think it translates into like 60 different languages in paragraph translation. We have single word translation as well. So I don't want to just dump on a ton of features on top of you. I hope from what we talked about today, you can at least take away sort of the core elements of this program and how it can support differentiated instruction and learning for students at OSU. So thank you very much.